Firstly, I'd like to welcome everybody here. And the first item on the agenda, so it is recording now? Yes. Great. So firstly, any apologies? And so I think it's apology is before, which is Tony Fox and Terry Walker. And I think Gary as well. Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Robert, seconder, Sally. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Any conflicts of interest? There being none, then we'll carry on. Go to item 2.1, which is the report, commercial licensed operators hearings report. And I'd like to acknowledge Derek Thompson, who's behind us, the Community Facilities Manager. We also have Dean Allen and Bruce Hinson available to us. And just like a mover, Murray, seconder.
Yep.
John. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. So we now invite the submitters forward, and our first submitter is Matthew Collicott. Is Matthew available? Matthew, if you're online, if you could unmute and speak, that would be great. If not, we'll move on to the next submitter. Just wait a moment in case he's hunting for an unmute button. So we'll move on to Kelly Lynn Cook, submission page 12, and invite Kelly to address the meeting. Is Kelly available? Yes. Kelly, please. Take a seat and welcome. Thank you. And the mask is optional if you'd like to. Oh, just for clarity, thank you. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so my family and I have been operating a banana boat out of Whitianga for the last 27 years. And how it is it's always been if we do it and do a good job, and you know, it belongs to us unless we give it up. So I'm very concerned about the fact that price has got a higher, how much people pay has got a higher rating than your track record, and you know, whether you're a local or not, or yeah, it just really concerns me, especially in this day and age when you know, many people, there's just a few people that own a lot of money, so it's going to be very easy for people with a lot of money just to come in and go bang, and they're not necessarily having values that we have.
As the what
values?
Our values, right?
Yeah, they don't necessarily have the values that we have, you know, because making money isn't everything for a community. So, I mean, at the banana boat, we care about people, we really want to give them a good time. We've always kept our prices really down. So, so the average Kiwi, we deal with Kiwis, so the average Kiwi can do it right, because if you've got a family today of, say you're a family of 5, you just haven't got $500 in your back pocket to go and fork out for, you know, a lot of boat trips and things like that, but you might have $20 each or $15 each. So we have to look not just for the people that have got a lot of money, but for the people, you know, we have to look after our people. We have to look after our people.
Thank you.
So I have a good question. Make it easier here. So you suggest that we've got the weightings for it wrong. Have you got a suggestion as what you'd like the weightings to be? Or would you say in your submission that the track record and experience is 15% of the weighting, whereas the tendered amount is 25%? Would you like that switched, or do you want them even?
Oh, absolutely switched.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Are there any other questions of Kelly? Did you want to expand on those weightings at all, Kelly?
Well, it's just that,
Because in light of Robin's question, which is a really good question, this is, so if you've got any ideas or recommendations around weightings, now's the time.
well, I think I think it should go much more on your track record and your experience and how well people receive you than on money, because,
Okay, thank you.
because we have to have values to have a healthy society, and not necessarily does having more money go hand in hand with more values.
Thank you.
And how do the locals keep continuing, operating if, people with $5 million can just pop on in? Doesn't,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
Your current concession expires in another year, doesn't it?
At the in June.
Into June.
Yeah.
Would it be advantageous for your business if you had a concession instead of lasting 2 years, lasted say 8 or 10 years?
I think that's advantageous, yes. It is advantageous, but if it's at the price of this rating, I don't think so, because as it stands at the moment, if we still want to operate next year, then we get first choice. Whereas if this weighting goes in, we don't get first choice necessarily. And that's very difficult. It's very difficult to plan anything. It's very difficult with maintenance.
And I'm just going to make a comment, I probably shouldn't, but that's one of the lemons, that you want first choice. One of the things we're looking at is to safeguard that first choice, because a lot of other people want to come and operate concessions as well. One of the things we're trying to safeguard.
Existing operators.
Yeah, well, in terms
I think it's important. And
In terms of giving them- giving them-
27 years.
giving them secure and tenure, yeah.
I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Kelly.
Yeah, thanks.
Is Jan Ward available, please?
She is, she's here. She is.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Welcome to both.
Thank you, Jan and Linda. So as you know, we've got the Treats Coffee van, which we had originally at the Shoppers Car Park, like here in the field, and last year during the COVID approval, we got the opportunity to take it into the mall, which probably saved our business. We wouldn't have survived outside. But I'm saying that our vision is still about providing something on that Queen Street thoroughfare for people to stop, chat, find out about the community, grab a coffee, and go and visit our beautiful, places to visit. So we are still currently in the mall, and I suppose one of the hardest things for us is winter outside. So we plan to stay in the mall for a couple more months and just build up our business again, because, COVID has been really hard. But the aim is still eventually to go back outside if we have concession. One of the problems that we had with the original concession is that we weren't guaranteed any car parks. So we had to go down really early to secure a place. If we went down there early, we couldn't operate. So that made our business really hard, because you go down at 6 o'clock in the morning and you wouldn't do your business for 2 hours, So that made that aspect of it hard, that we weren't allocated the area. And I don't know whether that's doable, but perhaps we could ask for that to be considered. And we always knew that when the rescreening caravan came in that we had to move, but that's changing too, I gather. So, our vision and our mission is still the same, is to provide something to stop camper vans and boats and trailers going through the main street. And tell people about our beautiful place we live in.
Sally?
Um,
Obviously been for-
just certainty of tenure, so a longer term, you would find that useful in
Yes,
terms of your business plan and vision?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right,
The long-term lease and preferably with an allocated spot.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
yes.
Any other questions, Martin?
So with that, like guaranteed spot or whatever, could that work if it was, signed as, no parking here, before 9 o'clock or something, so that if you weren't turning up, it would be available, or would you think that might make it just confusing for people?
That could work.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions of Jan?
Yeah, actually, yeah, just back to Sally's question, that, that certainty of tenure is important to you, but how long would you like? Like, would you like it at 10 year, 5 years?
I think.
Dream with me. 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? There be none. Linda, I see you're on after Jan. So
No, different Linda. Linda.
Oh, different Linda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good time. You're gonna get 2 cracks in it.
That's
Relaxed and pretty open, so.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
So Linda. Yes. Please, welcome.
Okay. I had to write my own notes because otherwise I'd forget what I need to say. I think, I want to try and express to you the difference and uniqueness of what we do as a concession operator. So firstly, I feel there's a little bit of a lack of actual understanding on what commercial activities actually do in our region, and probably a lack of understanding particularly what we do as a business. We've been established for nearly 18 years. We're a member of the Academy of Diving Trust. There are only 9 businesses, flying businesses throughout New Zealand, who are part of this network, and only members of the Academy of Diving Trust are able to provide NZQA programs and issue NCA credits. The qualifications run concurrently with PADI internationally recognised dive certifications, and Dives Infinity is the largest provider of dive training of all of these facilities in the country, having built this business up from scratch over the last 18 years. We currently deal with around 18 schools from around the North Island who bring their groups between 15 and 30 students at a time, some of them several times a year to undertake dive training. This is from PADI Open Water through to PADI Advanced and PADI Rescue Training. To keep this economic to schools, we need to be able to access shore diving locations, and these need to be varied to use, as use depends both on the type of the training and then very much on the weather and sea conditions. These student groups are here for at least 3 days at a time. They stay in hired accommodation, they shop in the supermarkets. On many occasions, we've seen families of those students that come to visit Whitianga as their kids would return home and recommended a holiday here. In addition to school groups, we also run a year-round full-time program teaching individuals from PADI Open Water through to PADI Specialty Dive Instructors. That's done as a diploma program. Shore diving sites are again imperative both to be able to teach them how to teach to dive from the shore, but also to gain access to shore dive sites that are appropriate for the types of training they're involved with. These students are with us 4 days a week for 44 weeks. We have 2 intakes a year, so we're training around about 25 trainees every year. They're with us for the year. So 1 in February, 1 in August, and they cross over for a while. They come from all over the country to train with us, and while they're here, they need housing, they fill job needs in cafes, bars, supermarkets, etc. Their families come to visit, they book accommodation, they eat in our restaurants. And then we have a PADI recreational dive training, which is the tourist and local market. It's predominantly weekend and peak holiday seasons. Our business does not solely operate from shore diving sites. We've invested heavily in boats. We've got 2 12-metre vessels and 1 6-metre inflatable vessel, all purpose-built for dive training and charter trips. We purchased a commercial use marina berth to ensure we have somewhere to operate from, and we've invested in our commercial property in Whitianga that we operate at as well. Your proposed process for businesses needing to operate from reserves has absolutely no discretion to deal with businesses like ours. We've played this game for nearly 18 years with pager fees, which is currently $100 because we multiple sites. The new proposed minimum cost to us would be $4,500 a year. So it's quite a significant increase. That's if you just put the minimum tender price on every site that we use. That's not competitively tendering. Applied for our multiple sites, yeah, okay. We've provided with our insurance policies, our health and safety and our annual follow-up reports. We already pay commercial rent, which, you know, now it's to ourselves, gratefully, but it's $75,000 a year. Commercial rates, $9,000 a year. We don't occupy anything other than a car park on the beaches. We don't transact our business, nor do we advertise on any of the sites we need to be able to cross or operate from. And we are not on all sites every day, far from it. Some key sites like Hahei, which we hold a concession for, we don't operate from there in the peak tourist times at all. That's predominantly somewhere we would take school groups to do the kayak diving experience into the marine reserve. It's a prime site for it. It's a unique site, and it's one that there's nowhere else that's comparable that we could use as an alternative. So we might only be there 10 times a year sometimes, but we need those sites. We know that if Dives in Whitinga didn't exist on the peninsula, but those that come to train with us would just find the same programs elsewhere. There's 8 companies out there that do what we do. And we know that there are plenty that would head north to the Poor Knights and Bay of Islands to dive. And I think, you know, we've done a huge amount of work in making people aware of what we have that's special on that East Coast, and we're there to facilitate them being able to access it. We believe that council is making decisions on what is a flawed and poorly thought out proposed process with little understanding on who the actual operators that currently work in our area are and what they actually do, and how we can all be impacted by weather and sea conditions, let alone COVID-19. For instance, there are marine operators that we're aware of that have had 14 days in total over the peak period that they managed to operate due to sea conditions. We believe that you're at risk of driving out existing local-based operators, and it just becomes financially unviable if they haven't got a clear picture of what they're going to need to pay to make sure that their business structure is viable. We know that there are other dive companies who want to bring groups of divers to dive from shore in our area, and it happens. Being local, we police that whenever we come across this happening. Being local, we look after our area, its marine and foreshore environments. We undertake roadside rubbish and seafloor cleanups regularly, and being local, we ensure that those we train understand how to protect our environment and the creatures within it and the importance of that. Tendering risks awarding these concessions to out-of-town operators who are not vested in our local communities and area. We know that there are out-of-town dive operators in the past who have not treated our area well. We apply for multiple sites due to the need to relocate for safety reasons should the weather or sea not be conducive to safely carrying out the training we are doing on the day. Some of our sites are required to do due to the type of training, i.e. dive marine reserves or rescue training where we need a sandy bum, don't need depth. And some of the sites are because we're donating our time and equipment to undertake activities with local scouts, special needs kids from the school and such like. So sometimes that's the only use, like breaking speech. The stress for local operators in having to blind tender for something they've already been running well for a number of years is grossly unfair. To have done this coming out of 2 years of COVID-19, 2 years of predominantly easterly conditions that have impacted costs and abilities to fully operate was ludicrous and cruel. We also note that within the tender applications, we were required to consult with neighbour and property owners. I just, in February, I never got a chance to even talk to any neighbours, and nor was I going to, because we point out that beachfront owners bought a house. They did not buy the beach, and many beachfront property owners would prefer not to have any commercial operators on their beaches. We experience continual objection from 1 or 2 that just don't want to see others use their beach. And it's always interesting that they're the ones that we pick up the most rubbish from outside their gates. They don't seem to participate themselves. We ask that you throw out this proposed process, revert to the old process, and look at amending your fee structure. Credit needs to be given to operators like ourselves who are not operating, but merely crossing the beach. That's all we do. We park a vehicle and we literally cross the beach and we enter the water, and we come back out and we cross the beach and we get back in the vehicle, we check for rubbish and we leave. Equally, there are others that the concession fee is the only rental expense. If the process of licensing operators in reserve is genuinely about covering council's costs, then you should be ascertaining what those costs are and working out a fair schedule of how to apply those costs. This should not be revenue generating exercise for council. You should be looking at it from the perspective that these businesses enhance our visitor experiences, which encourages them to visit, revisit, tell their friends, and thus the financial benefits that has to the whole community, council included.
Excellent, thank you. I'll ask a question.
John,
You said that you only really use the car park, so what makes you think you need a concession?
we've always been made to use a concession. Yeah, because we crossed the reserve.
I don't think you do.
I think we've.
See, if you only use the car park.
Questions?
I'd love to.
Oh, sorry, no, touched my mouth. I was only supposed to ask questions. I'd be asking that question.
I've asked that question.
Big time.
We've been through this process.
Your worship, I can assure that that'll be subject to the deliberation discussions, I can promise you.
And we don't have a problem with asking for a concession and holding a concession and looking after our environment. And in fact, as I've said, we know that there are other operators that are from the Auckland region and the Hamilton regions that would love to be able to come and just help themselves through our beaches. And if you don't put it under a concession licence, that will happen.
Yes.
And we have had experiences in the past where, you know, they leave rubbish, they pee in the bushes, and old Jonia, bloody Otani, she'd be first on the phone. You know, they don't contribute back into our community. We know there was a company that's now gone back in the earlier days where Matt caught them with undersized fish. I mean, we're not actually hunting and gathering, we're training most. Virtually all of our stuff on the shore is about training, but these guys will come over and they will shore dive and they will hunt and gather. So it's another type of impact. So you need to have a concession type licence.
That's been canvassed well and truly in the past, hasn't it? And that's where we came to.
Happy with that,
So
not happy with having to commit.
Because are you aware that on top of this, I understand that you talk about having 2 boats, right?
Yeah.
And so, so I'm unsure whether or not you're going to be incurring also wharfage or.
We own commercial, we board commercial berths in the marina, so we operate out the marina. I don't operate off the wharf whatsoever. We occasionally operate off with kayak trips. Again, it's only school, we don't sit and hire kayaks, and it's a pre-booked. All business activity undertaken in our business premises. We merely launch at the boat ramp and visit out the harbour or into the marine waterways for, you know, a couple of hours and come back. So yes, our use of the reserve is purely crossing. It is not anything in any way, shape or form as it.
We'll be having some party discussions. Thank you very much indeed. Any other questions? Of Linda? So Linda, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being
Appreciate
here. It's a long way.
Okay, is Matthew with us at all? Matthew Collicott.
He was going to be on the phone. Are you to ring him?
Were you meant to be ringing? No. Have you been able to raise on that? No. Would somebody like to call them? And we'll see what happens, please.
I was talking to him today. He was doing the phone.
Okay, so.
Buying team.
You may not have understood, so we'll just take a moment, walk around, see where it's at. And then we can always put them on speakerphone.
Are we all right to go?
Yes,
Thanks, Jan.
thank you very much.
You can stay or go and have a cup of tea, whatever. Thank you very much, Jan.
I did print off copies of what I read. Did you want?
Okay, that would be great.
They're different use of it.
Additional information.
Yeah.
But
So
What did you say about them?
It just means that in case you raise something else,
Yeah.
your presentation.
Coffee with them at Tree.
Thank you, Mary.
Oh, right.
So,
I've just been told he won't be in reception.
Right, okay.
He won't be in
But that's
reception.
okay, so therefore
an hour to have a chat.
we have no further submitted. Therefore, I will close the hearings and I just say something. So what can I do?
Oh, I just want to say, I agree with everything that Linda's saying, and also with us. Like, we're not a huge operating business, we only operate like 55 days in the year, or 60 days in the year when we can. So it's more, you know, for the school holidays and Easter and that, so it's not,
Understand that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
we know when you operate.
Different business models.
I'm well aware.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that concludes the hearings for Tuesday, 3rd May 2022. I hereby close the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Whatever
The
words.
meeting is